wins silver in the 200 medley relay. Michaela Colts, who's headed to Rice, wins gold in the 100-yard breaststroke and the 200-yard IM bronze. Pierce Brook from Cedar Park, who's headed to Texas, wins gold in the 1-meter diving competition. Hayes Anderson Brown, 200 IM silver medal. McCallum freshman Iris Burns wins bronze in the 1-meter diving. And then for Rouse, the 200 freestyle relay, they win bronze. Ella McQuinn, Allison Walker, Lindsey Morgan, and Hannah Elziat. So when I was a senior at Incarnate Word, I was an RA, and in my dorm were a bunch of the swim kids. And probably the craziest person I ever met in my whole life has all of the diving records at UIW. Did you get to see and call diving at the 4A championship?
Yes. Diving's
it's crazy.
It is. That's a good way of putting it. I haven't done diving before. It's the gap in 4A a lot different than 5A and 6A in terms of the talent level from the top to the bottom.
Right.
But it's fun to watch, and I was kind of surprised by it because diving is
Any good smackers?
What's a smacker?
Just a smack on the water.
Oh yeah. There's a few kind of slip ups with the diving board.
That's probably the 4A to 6A kind of
gap.
Probably not too many.
Which kind of it's just
probably not too many smackers in 6A. I would guess. How do you call a smacker?
Yeah, you don't. You just try to be as nice as possible, right? Because these are just high school kids, right?
Yeah,
they're doing what they love.
Yeah, you just say it wasn't what he was hoping for.
Yeah,
that's what I go with.
You just hope all the teams have fun.
Yeah, exactly. They're out there having fun,
As Cameron mentioned, big time for basketball fans. A couple of girls teams left on the 5A ranks. Pflugerville plays Fulshire this weekend. Liberty Hill plays Vela, and Hendrickson plays Barbers Hill. So a few teams that we still have left on the 5A side for girls. But to get to some scores and upcoming matchups on the guys' side, as we head into the third round of the playoffs, Cameron? Fourth round?
For girls entering they're now in regionals.
Right.
Past regionals now. And men's head into its area round will be tomorrow and Friday, and then they head to the regional rounds next week.
So in 5A, some of those scores. Rouse beats Kerrville Tivy 60-39. Next up for Rouse, they play Breckenridge, who's 21-11. They play them this Friday. I couldn't get any details on the time and place for that game, but I'll continue to look as the show progresses. Leander falls to Bernie Champion 36-35. Next up for Bernie Champion, they play Harlandale, who's 21-11 this Friday at 6:30 at the Paul Taylor Fieldhouse, which I think is where me and you called some volleyball games, Cam.
Yeah. That's a big big area down there.
Hayes,
that's where they had the swim championships for 4A.
They just take out the basketball court and there's a swimming pool underneath?
It's next door.
Okay.
Next door. Come on, Zach. Yeah, they bring out an inflatable.
You didn't pay me a good enough picture.
Inflatable pool in the middle of the basketball court.
Yeah, they just put a little kiddie pool
it's about
there.
5 feet deep, but you just dive into it from 30 feet up.
Continuing with the scores, Nolan's Hayes Hawks fall to Wagner 70-53. Really good season for Hayes this year.
Yeah.
Chris Bruce, a lot of those football guys. Zach O'Bara also on the basketball team. Zach O'Bara just committing to Incarnate Word, my alma mater. So shout out to him. But for Hayes, continuing success. Not quite what they expected on the football side, but went pretty well for them in basketball.
Yeah, as well. They also have the younger Dessou brother. I think his name is Aiden Dessou. And he was one of their higher scorers this year. He was a leader on that team, and I'm excited to see where he goes in this next year.
Yeah, super athletic family. Both of those sisters, the twin sisters, are both headed to Rhode Island for volleyball, and they both played on the basketball team as well. So a really athletic family there. But unfortunately, Hayes falling to Wagner 70-53. Glenn falling to Veterans Memorial 72-50. LBJ beating up on Georgetown 70-57. Next up for LBJ, they'll play Brian Rudder this Friday. Brian Rudder is 31-5 as a state-ranked program. That game is at 6:45 at Giddings High School. Eastview, Cameron mentioned this when he walked up. Eastview put the smackdown on McCallum, 62-34. Big-time win for Eastview. Then next up for them, they take on A&M Consolidated, which is 25-8. Always a good athletic program over A&M Consolidated. That's the second game of a doubleheader at Rockdale High School. They'll play at 8 o'clock. Continuing on with scores, Hendrickson puts up 100-piece on Northeast. They win 100-50. Next up for Hendrickson, they play Ellison, another state-ranked program. I think I saw they're number 2 in the state right now at 33-3. They'll play at Liberty Hill at 7 p.m. on Friday. Connolly beats Lhasa 74-37. Next up for Connolly, they take on Belton, 7 p.m. at Burnett High School. And on the 6A side of things, Westlake beats Westwood by 1 point, 45-44. Westlake's Gavin Paul with a bucket with 2.7 seconds left.
Off the glass too, Zach.
Yeah, I read it's like fadeaway bucket. This is their first ever matchup between the two teams since 2014. For Westwood, Caden Branch with 13 points led all scorers there. Next up for Westlake, they take on San Marcos, who's another team that we've been covering a little bit. San Marcos is really good on the basketball side of things, 35-3 on the season. They play on Friday at 7:30 at Bowie High School. Buda Johnson defeats Vandergrift 56-36. Buda Johnson, probably the story of the season so far. Just the upsets that they've been able to complete and just the runs that they've been on. Heading into the playoffs, being really one of those kind of powerhouse programs that we expect here in the 5-1-2 to make a good run. Buda Johnson beats Vandergrift 56-36. Next up for Buda Johnson, they take on New Braunfels this Friday at Hayes High School, 7 p.m. Nolan, in your neck of the woods. Round Rock beats Lake Travis, kind of a surprising one here, 37-24, low-scoring game. Next up for Round Rock, they take on Reagan, who's 30-5 this Friday at Kenyon Lake High School. Round Rock held Lake Travis scoreless for the whole second quarter and 6 minutes of the third quarter.
That's that football physicality. That Round Rock football team or Round Rock basketball team has Leonard Moore, Mason Cochran as the big in the center. And they have Jackson Anders playing on the basketball team. They have maybe 4 or 5 football players on that team.
That's like the whole defense, and then the quarterback to lead the way. I mean, and I read a little bit of that article on the Statesman, and they were talking about that if they were to give an MVP in that game, it'd be to Leonard Moore just for the defense that he's able to play. Mm-hmm. Hudson Greer, who we had on the show a couple weeks ago, led all scorers with 9 points. To hold a Division I caliber kind of guy to only 9 points, to the guy who has offers from a bunch of Big 12 schools talking to us about going on visits to UCLA. But I mean, just a huge performance for Round Rock. They take on Reagan, which will be another tough task. But I mean, in high school sports, high school basketball right now, when you don't have that shot clock, you can really kind of play that type of ball game defensively, where you're just going to kind of drag teams out, limit possession, just hold the ball for a long time, kind of frustrating you on the offensive side of things.
Make bad shots. Bad shot selection leads to easy rebounds.
Yeah, so I read that their goal is to hold every team they play to under 40 points, which is not something you hear a lot about.
That's crazy.
In basketball, especially in the 6A ranks. So big win for Round Rock. They defeat Lake Travis 37-24. Stony Point beats Anderson 67-46. Like I mentioned, we'll talk to a star of that Stony Point team here in just a bit. They beat Anderson 67-46. Next up for Stony Point, they play Steele, who's 20-14 at Lehman High School at 7 o'clock on Friday. Hutto falls to Cedar Hill 47-46. Hutto had a really good basketball season this year. Interesting to see, and we'll be interested to see how they grow on that going forward. DeSoto beats Weiss 60-56. Glad to see that Weiss put up a fight in that one. That's always going to be a tough draw for the 2 years that this is the district, that this is going to be the alignment for Weiss. That's going to be a tough draw for them, probably having to face DeSoto in every sport in the first round of the playoffs. We saw him kind of get beat up on by Jonte Cook in the first round of the playoffs. Was hoping to talk to Vernon Hughes, but unable to get him. But hopefully we can get him on the line here soon to talk about that matchup where they lost to DeSoto. Was competitive early in that ball game, but DeSoto, the eventual state champions, kind of pulled away later in that one. And the last basketball score I have, Harker Heights defeats Waxahachie 61-47. Next up for Harker Heights, they play Mesquite Horn, who's 18-16, a very winnable game for Harker Heights. That game at Fairfield High School at 7:30. Cameron, anything from what you've been following on the guys side of things? I know you mentioned calling that Stony Point game on Friday. Anything stick out to you from what you've seen so far this season, or maybe thus far in the playoffs?
Yeah, I was able to make it out to Cedar Ridge High School on Monday night for the Eastview McCallum game, and Eastview got to a 6-0 start and just never looked back. Some great basketball all around. Terrion Benson, the sophomore, had a big night. Jackson Durr, the sophomore, 6'6". He's a forward. He's a guard. He can do it all. He's going to be a star going forward. And Jaden Prelude had some big buckets. I think Jeremy Helton had 4 3-pointers, 12 points. For an Eastview, that was their first postseason victory in men's basketball.
Ever?
Wow. All time they were 0-2. Drew McDormand came in his second season as a head coach, won 4 games in district play last year, finished 7th place. Come back this year, a tough really tough district. You got Georgetown, you got Hendrickson, I believe you got Pflugerville High School in there. There's some great basketball teams in that district to kind of have to go up and compete against. Finish third, which is pretty good. Get that first victory. I believe they faced a winner. I believe they face A&M Consolidated either tomorrow night or Friday. So a big shout out to Eastview, both men's and girls, who ironically defeated McCallum in the first round.
Yeah, you mentioned they're taking on A&M Consolidated. That'll take place this Friday at 8 o'clock at Rockdale High School. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get a hold of Coach Hughes. But one thing I did pull that I think will be interesting for us to talk about, because as you guys know, that we did that all flex team where we picked a couple players at each position, really highlighted those guys for having incredible seasons this year. Austin American Statesman does something kind of like that as well. They give out their high school sports awards. They have a really cool banquet that they do at the end of the year at the Long Center. They recognize like tons and tons of different sports. But they put out their finalists for their Defensive Football Player of the Year and Offensive Player of the Year. And I wrote down, I mean, they give like 20-something finalists. So I wrote down about 10 of them, 10 or so finalists, and I kind of wanted to talk to you guys about this, maybe compare it a little bit to what we have on the all-flex team. So for the Defensive Football Player of the Year, they put Cedar Ridge, Miles Brophy, Chris Bruce from Hayes, Brody Bueno from Hutto, Will Courtney from Westlake, Caleb Dickey at Crockett, Alex Foster of Vandergrift, Jalen Gilbert and Jet Jones from Round Rock, the Trey McCutcheon for LBJ, Peyton Morgan, who we had on the show a couple weeks ago, Daniel Obina for Georgetown, Justin Strong from Elgin, Ivy Webb from Anderson, Colton Vosick at Westlake, Damian Wimberly from Vandergrift, who we're going to have on the show here in a couple weeks, and Princewell Uman Mielen from Manor, the recent Nebraska signee. Do you think they got that right? And if you were to, what's crazy is that they narrow this down to one person for the Defensive Player of the Year. So thinking back to all the guys that we had and that we recognize as either finalists or as at a certain position for the all-flex team, if you were going to even attempt to make a single Defensive Player of the Year, any ideas who you would pick?
Oh, a single player for Defensive Player of the Year.
I mean, there's like 3 or 4 guys you can just look at from the defensive line.
Right.
Like trying to figure out, when we were going through the all-flex process, trying to figure out who we wanted to nominate for the all-flex team. I mean, I think, Zach, you were on that call. I don't know if Nolan, you were. It was a 2-hour call just to go through.
More than 2 hours.
I mean, trying to figure out, I mean, looking at defensive line, Colton Vosick, Damon Wimberly, and then Princewell Uman Mielen. That's 3.
Then
you got Caleb Dickey over at
if you look at the stats, then it's got to be Caleb Dickey.
He had 20,000 sacks this year. It's like, okay, you can't leave off Caleb Dickey, but then you have a bunch of 5- and 4-star guys that are going D1. It was tough, and then you got to do that for linebackers, safeties. Like that's tough to just pick one player, which is why I'm so glad we do just an all flex list. But what's tough is that, I mean, you get into the honorable mentions. Right. Second teams and third teams, and it's why it's so hard.
And I think that's why the Statesman lists like 30-something finalists. Because it's so hard.
Yeah, you want to give everyone all due credit, and it's tough to do in high school because you don't have the stats that are readily available. You have in other leagues where you can go deep diving in the analytics. Right, you can just go based off what your eye test is, what you see on film, and then what's the stats say.
Right, and it's like, do you put the guy Caleb Dickey that had 20-something sacks for Crockett, where unfortunately not a lot of those games were very competitive, or do you put the guy that's 6-star going to Texas? And I think if I was going to give it to an individual player, I think it would have to go Colton Vosick for Westlake. I think like the combination of his recruiting prowess, his notoriety, and like every team, no matter the stats, like he was the focal point of the game plan.
Yeah, he dominated every O-line he ever stepped up against.
And even with having to game plan around a guy like Colton Vosick, he still got his in every game. So Nolan, taking Colton Vosick off the list, because I already took him, who would you?
Well, hearing that my boy Hayes Hawk, Chris Bruce, is on the list, I'm going with that guy, because since his sophomore year, he's been carrying that team to carry them to the 4th round of the playoffs. Again, 5th round against Katy, but who was a steamroller.
Yeah.
You just got a tough draw with there, and Chris Bruce carried that team offense and defense, playing both ways, and now to his senior year, not the outcome you wanted to see with the kind of the downfall towards the end of the season. Had a good start, but just kind of stumbled out of the towards the finish line. But I mean, he is a ultimate leader on that field, and everyone on that team looks to him first.
Yeah, and that's another way you could look at things like Cameron mentioned. You have to look at the stats, or you have to look at the recruiting. But another thing you could look at is like, what does this guy mean to the team? Because that's what you talk about, like the MVP race for things, and that's what MVP stands for, is most valuable player to their team. So I took Colton Vosick. Nolan took Chris Bruce from Hayes. Cameron, you can't pick those two guys. If you had to pick a sole defensive player of the year.
I don't know. It's impossible. I mean,
I know you're an LBJ guy, so Trey McCutcheon maybe.
That's a good one. Trey had a really good year.
Another Nebraska guy.
Shout out to E. Hogan, just texted me. He said, whoever the Vandegrift kid who doubled everybody's tackles, Alex Foster.
Yeah, Alex Foster had a huge year, and he's coming back for another year.
Yeah,
he's on full swing for lacrosse right now. Alex Foster, another one of those guys where you're like, okay, I have to look at the stats. Okay, but he's not getting recruited by as many schools as this guy is.
Yeah.
But he means so much to the team. You ask Coach Sanders. He was how Coach Sanders kind of planned that defense. Him and Damian Wimberly just kind of working those two guys in unison. So Cameron's kind of skipping the question.
Probably, I would go with either Jalen Gilbert or Alex Foster. Maybe Peyton Morgan. It's got to be a DB too, because those guys defensively, they change the game. And DBs don't show up in the stats because if you're not getting a lot of stats, it's probably a good thing.
Right.
Because you're not being targeted. And I don't think Jalen Gilbert was targeted a lot on his side of the field.
It was Leonard Moore all year.
Same thing.
So
exactly.
he got all the praise.
It's the opposite, I think. Jalen got more targets.
Right, you're right. I think Jalen made a few more interceptions. Leonard Moore was kind of slept on, but he's the one that's getting recruited by all these big-time guys. I remember when I was in high school, there was a kid for Round Rock that had 10 interceptions on the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to my friends on the football team, and they were like, "Man," because we kept it was I worked for a different media outlet back then, but everyone was talking about him, and we were always talking about him, and all on social media, and they were like, "Dude, this kid stinks."
Yeah,
that's why they keep throwing at him all the time. Is because he stinks. They never throw at me. I never get any picks.
Yeah.
So I think all three of those guys, Colton Vosick, Chris Bruce. And then the three that Cameron picked, I think those are all really good choices. We had Peyton Morgan on the show. He's more of that ball hawk kind of guy. Alex Foster, the tackles guy, kind of like a Will Courtney over at Westlake. Be tons of tackles, kind of play at the line of scrimmage, hard nosed safety. And then for me, Jalen Gilbert is kind of like the do-it-all type of thing. He's like that prototypical, has good size. He's pretty big, like kind of thicker for a DB.
Physical, flies
super
around.
physical. Can play that center field. Can also help in run stopping. So I think he's going to do really well. I'm interested to see, because his dad is a really big guy too.
Yeah.
So to continue filling him out and being in a SEC weight program at Vanderbilt, him and Cedric Alexander, I think both of those guys could really be impactful at the next level. Speaking of Cedric Alexander, again, I picked a handful of guys out of the 30 that the Statesman put for their finalists for Offensive Player of the Year. We'll talk about this and then we'll hit a quick break. The guys I picked: Cedric Alexander, LBJ, Hayden Arnold for Vandegrift, the kicker, Braden Buchanan and Miles Coleman, and Blake Frazier, all from Vandegrift, John Bragg from LBJ, Justin Cannon, the running back at Rouse, Cameron Dickey, the quarterback at Crockett, Drayden Dickman, the receiver from Rouse, Broden Elliott, another guy that we're going to have on the show here in the next couple of weeks, offensive lineman for Georgetown, just signed to Angelo State, Jaden Greathouse, a Westlake wide receiver who's over at Notre Dame, Will Hammond from Hutto, another guy who you're going to hear on the show here in the next couple of weeks, Quentin Joyner, the Maynard running back who's at USC, Kyle Cook from Dripping Springs, Noah Long, Liberty Hill, Austin Novosad, Dripping Springs, who's at Oregon right now, Andrew Petter, the running back at Georgetown, who just picked up his first Division I offer from UT Rio Grande Valley, and then Ed Small from Anderson. I think if I was going to pick my singular Offensive Player of the Year, I think I would go Austin Novosad.
That was my answer.
But now you can't take him because I took him.
Thank you.
We gave our quarterback for the all-flex team to Braden Buchanan, and I think the timing of that really helped Braden out a lot because he had just punched his ticket to the state championship, and how do you not pick the quarterback? And then that's why we got a lot of LaGrange guys on our list, Liberty Hill guys on our list. Nothing against Braden Buchanan. I love that guy to death. Coming back from a knee injury, going to be playing baseball at Baylor. But I think what Austin Novosad did for the quarterback position really kind of like revitalizing recruiting here in Austin. It seems like the recruiting of Austin Novosad was like a national topic when he solidified his commitment to Baylor, when he got the offer from Notre Dame, got the offer from A&M, flipping on signing day to Oregon. This is like a polarizing thing that really just lit a fire here in the 512 in terms of recruiting outlets talking about us and talking about guys like Cedric Alexander and talking about guys like Blake Frazier and really helping the recruiting of a guy like Will Hammond. So I think I would go Austin Novosad, not only for what he did statistically, going on this crazy playoff run for a new 6A team, but just what he did for the scene. I think is why Austin Novosad would be my offensive player of the year. So Austin Novosad off the list, and you can't pick Braden Buchanan. Cameron can pick Braden Buchanan if he wants, but you can't pick Braden Buchanan. Who would be your singular offensive player of the year?
I think it's gonna have to be Jaden Greathouse. He's just dominant.
And we didn't even mention Braylon James.
Not even Braylon James or the guy on the opposite side of the field from Jaden Greathouse. Can't remember his name right now.
I know. Yeah, go ahead.
Keaton Kubeka.
Keaton Kubeka going to Kansas. Yeah,
going to Kansas. So, I mean, for that, I think Jaden Greathouse is just one of the best offensive players we've seen. Just in general,
he's a high school football GOAT.
Yeah, I mean, he's up there with the G Weezy, Jarrett Wilson, and now you got Baker. He's in that upper echelon of names in the Austin area coming out of the football world. So just like this year, I think he was that focal point for that offense, and he really helped Keaton get those looks. I think with DBs kind of fading towards Jaden's side, it just kind of opened up those opportunities for Hunter Luke to get those looks, and Keaton, like I said, getting those looks, and he just really opens up the field for a lot of people. Yeah,
Jaden Greathouse really kind of got close to that Kyler Murray type territory. I mean, you talk about a guy that won 3 state championships, started on that team as an impactful freshman. So I think that's a great pick. So I pick Austin Novosad. You pick Jaden Greathouse. Cameron Parker, your singular offensive player of the year. You can add Braylon James to the mix.
I feel like it's pretty easy. You guys should know what I'm going to pick here, right? I mean, Zach, you should know. It's Cedric Alexander.
Oh, yeah.
It's got to be said.
Got to be big said.
Greathouse is a great player. Novosad's a great player. But I think what Ced did in his district for that program, the runs they had over the last 3 years, getting to the state championship, getting to the Final Four,
breaking the
UIL record, the Austin ISD record, and also just the facilities that Austin ISD provides for these schools. It's a flat out joke, and what Coach Fenner and LBJ have done is a testament. It's a big reason why he's at UT right now, right? What he did to that program, and it's a great program. It's a great high school. Their Jaguar pride's a real thing, and what Ced has been able to do and to go and break that record and now go off to Vanderbilt. I mean, that's one of the toughest schools to get into. So not only academically, I know Jaden's going to Notre Dame, which is an incredible school to get into. Same thing for Braylon James, too. Wish Notre Dame would start recruiting Austin kids. Come on, guys. Please stop. But for Ced, I think it's Ced both on the field and off the field.
Yeah. Austin Novosad, Jaden Greathouse, Cedric Alexander. I mean, I think if we put those guys into Madden right now, I think we'd have a start to a pretty good team.
Oh, yeah. Good franchise start for sure.
Hopefully some interviews on the other side of the break. I'm Zach. That's Nolan. Cameron Parker. Flex ATX. More when we come back. Flex, ATX. Cameron Parker's humor going right over the head of Nolan Hogan.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently so.
Zach Lucero, Nolan Hogan sitting across from me. Cameron Parker, Wednesday night flex. So we just talked about Statesman's Defensive Player of the Year award that they're going to be giving out here in the near future. Offensive Player of the Year award that they're going to give out here in the near future. Let's talk about our awards that we gave out. Kids got to come by Waterloo Ice House. Shout out to those guys. Pick up their certificates for the All Flex finalists. And got to go by Pluckers during Ball Don't Lie, the show that was on right before us, to pick up their awards for making the All Flex team. It wasn't just one person. We gave a couple for each position. Made a full-on roster of the best players here in the 5-1-2. I'm going to go over the defense, and we'll talk about it a little bit. I'll go over the special teams. We'll talk about it a little bit. We'll reminisce on the season that was. Talk about the offense, where these guys are going, what these guys might turn into at the next level. Starting with the defense. A lot of these names you'll recognize from the finalists for the Statesman Award too. So that goes to show maybe we do know what we're talking about at least a little bit. On the defensive line, Caleb Dickey, Damian Wimberly of Vandergrift, Princewell Human Mielin for Manor, and Colton Vosick for Westlake. The three linebackers on our list, Ivy Webb for Anderson, who just committed as a walk-on to SMU. Reed Vines, the football player / hooper for Cedar Park. Brody Bueno, who we had on the show last week, the linebacker out of Hutto, who's headed to Air Force. Jalen Gilbert, who we just talked in depth about at the safety position for Round Rock. One of the four DBs, Alex Foster. The Vandergrift safety, Peyton Morgan, friend of the show, safety at Weiss. And then finally, Rod Babers' favorite player, Justin Strong, the safety of Elgin. Cameron, you were at these events where we got to talk to a lot of these players. Was there anything that was like, in terms of talking to the kids and the demeanor about them, was there anything that you saw that stuck out from these players that you thought was maybe a little bit different than a regular high school athlete?
I thought for sure, like, the way Elgin showed up as a community, and maybe it's because I'm biased, and I was around Elgin for a couple of years doing their broadcasts and around them when Willie Simmons unfortunately passed away. But to see what Coach Clausen has done for that program and that community. I mean, the entire town of Elgin showed up. You can tell how much it meant to them.
It's like 50 people.
And they also, I mean, they went from 0 wins in district the previous year to making the playoffs. And that's a really big turnaround, especially for that area. And to see what that program said and see how much they cared about. We had Justin Strong, and I've known Justin and his mom for years, and the pride they have, and to see how much it meant to them. Yeah, because Justin played baseball.
You were the voice of the Wildcats.
I was the voice of the Wildcats. I don't know why you're surprised with that. Come on.
I don't know. I thought you meant you like had
but to see how much they meant to them, right? Because we do these shows, and some of these guys like Jaden and Colton, right? I mean, they're getting DMs from ESPN writers and 247 writers, right? They're getting already praised. I mean, Colton's playing at Texas, Jaden's at Notre Dame. They're already getting harassed by media and fans, but not every single high school athlete gets that, right? And to be able to provide coverage for everyone. And that's what I love about this All Flex Spotlight is, Caleb Dickey and Cameron Dickey, usually at Crockett, you're not getting the coverage, right? And the same thing, for even LBJ Austin, until Coach Fenner kind of put the foot down and was like, hey, we are pounding on the door of winning a state title. We need some coverage. And they finally were able to get it. But to be able what we had been able to do for those Flex shows and see how much, I mean, those guys didn't have to come out. No one had to come out. And they all came out. And they all wanted to sit down and talk with you and the Flex crew. And, frankly, that was awesome to see. That's what stood out to me.
Nolan, when you look at this list of guys, any of these guys stick out to you? I mean, you went to a lot of these games in person this year while me and Cameron were cooped up in studios or in the press box of games. You were on the sideline of a couple. Any of these names stick out to you?
Straight off the bat, obviously the DBs, Jalen Gilbert, Alex Foster, Justin Strong, Peyton Morgan. I was only able to see Jalen Gilbert and Alex Foster in live filming their games because I filmed majority Round Rock this season, but last year. But those four guys are just such leaders on their team, man, and they fly around and make plays happen. They change the game for their teams, and I mean with with the guys like those on your team, you have the ultimate confidence going into every game.
Yeah, and I think this list is a perfect mixture of all those things we talked about that separates these players in terms of stats, what they mean to the team, and then also like Division I kind of like how they project to the next level. I mean, you talk about Damian Wimberly headed to SMU on scholarship, Principal headed to Nebraska, Colton's already at Texas, Ivy Webb just committed to SMU, Brody Bueno headed to Air Force, Jalen Gilbert who's headed to Vanderbilt, Peyton Morgan, who just picked up, I think, his 18th Division I offer. Justin Strong, who I wouldn't be surprised ends up at a small Division I school, and Alex Foster, who's going to go D1 in something, whether it's lacrosse, whether it's football. So I mean, I think this list is perfect mix of all those things. Let's talk special teams.
One more thing about that defensive list that you don't see on the field is just the class that those guys hold themselves to. It's just like they walk around and they know their skill and they know who they are. So they're like walking up to them, like when I would interview Jalen and Leonard and all these Round Rock guys, they're the most humble as possible. They give all the credit to their coaches and their teammates, and they're the most like they encompass what it is to be a leader, and just like the character is always there with those guys.
Yeah, look, going into the special teams for the all-flex team, the punter, Owen Norrell out of Westwood, the kicker, Patrick Helen from Nolan's neck of the woods at Buda Johnson, who just committed to Texas Southern, Jake Helms, the long snapper from Westlake, Cameron Cook, the running back from Stony Point, who's headed to TCU, and then a guy whose name we've been mentioning a lot on this show, the basketball player, the defensive back, Leonard Moore.
Yeah.
And real quick on Cam Cook, so I mean, that tells you how loaded Austin was offensively. We only could pick 2 running backs, which is kind of stupid considering we had Quentin Joyner, Cedric Alexander, Cam Cook, Andrew Pettit at Georgetown, Liberty Hill. Who's Liberty Hill's running back again? Noah Long.
Noah Long. Yep.
We only could pick 2, and I advocated for Cameron Cook and Cedric Alexander. We figured out maybe like a loophole. Okay, where we're gonna, sometimes like NBA voters, they'll vote. Like Jokic will be MVP, but they'll put Joel Embiid like first team All NBA to kind of balance it out.
They'll put someone as a utility player or something.
Yeah.
For this, like we had to put Cam Cook at special teams because we couldn't get him on the running back spot. But personally, from what I saw at Stony Point, he is one of the most exciting high school athletes I've been able to cover because what he can do in open field and open space is scary. And I'm glad as a Texas fan that we want to see him on the football field after next year because he's going to be dangerous. Yeah. And I think if they can scheme up the right stuff and TCU's got a great offense, they're going to turn him into a playmaker.
Yeah, Cameron Cook, like you said, is just an electric ball player. Once he has the ball in his hands, there's no telling what's going to happen with that ball. I mean, it could be a 5-yard little cut juke and someone's on the ground and he's out of bounds, or it's a juke and it's a touchdown. So he's an electric player. He's putting stiff arms into people, putting them in the ground. Leonard Moore as well. I mean, he was more of a punt returner, kick returner, but they wouldn't kick it to him. They kicked it to they kicked it to the other kids. So I mean, he's another one of those kids where if he got the ball, you got to watch out because he had a few punt returns that were very close, if not scored. He was very electric on the punt returns.
Yeah, and Owen Norrell, like a guy that really opened up the special team side of things for Westwood because it's also the quarterback. So when he goes out there on 4th down, you can't put someone back half the time because you don't know if he's going to keep it or run some sort of fake. Then Patrick Helen, a guy with a flow like you, the long hair, but a really talented punter from Buda Johnson. I know there's a guy over at Hutto that a lot of people were clamoring for. And then like both of you guys said, Cameron Cook and Leonard Moore. Leonard Moore is a guy that's trending toward Notre Dame right now after a big offer for them.
I think he's committed.
Oh yeah, is he?
Yes.
He's
committed.
Again,
he committed. Yeah.
Again, Notre Dame committing recruiting the 5-1-2. But Cameron Cook, we'll talk about when we come back. We'll talk about why Cameron Cook wasn't one of the picks for running back because there's someone else on our list that did make it. That's pretty dang good at the position. More high school sports when we come back. FLX, ATX. It's the final segment on a Wednesday night. I'm Zach Lucero, Nolan Hogan, Cameron Parker working the phones, trying to get us some interviews. We've been recapping the all-flex team selections that we had during state championship week. We just went over special teams: Owen Norrell, Patrick Helen, Jake Helms, Cameron Cook, Leonard Moore. Before we talk about the offensive guys, but something we might have to do next week, I want to get to one of the greatest quarterbacks, one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the 5-1-2 last year. 7-on-7 God. Currently at UTEP, Mr. Seth Mauser. Seth, thanks for calling in, bro.
Oh, yeah, for sure. How's it going?
Hey, it's going good, man. So you're over at UTEP right now. We got a whole time difference and everything. How was your first couple of has it already been a month? How was your first couple of weeks been living the college life?
Oh, yeah, it's been about a month up here, but it's been great. I love it up here so far. A lot of learning, and it's a lot more freedom than back home. So
a lot of Mexican food?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
definitely eating good up here.
Tamales.
Yeah, something, bro. In case you didn't know, Seth Mauser was the signal caller for Coach Griedel's team over at Bastrop. Sent Julius Baynard to play big time college football. I mean, you have to know you're a big time part of that, and a big time part of really opening up that Bastrop offense. For you, what did Coach Griedel do when he came in and took over that job? What did he do for not only you yourself, but what did he do for and what will he continue to do for that Bastrop program, do you think?
Oh, yeah, Coach Griedel definitely came in and changed the program in a positive way. I mean, the facilities have never looked so nice. The players are confident. We're getting bigger, stronger, faster, and we can see that throughout the weeks that we work. And he's definitely going to put the program on the map.
And coming from Lake Travis, right?
Yeah, coming from Lake Travis.
So knowing that he's been,
I think he's in steel. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, knowing that he's been around a program like Lake Travis and has sent a bunch of quarterbacks Division I and has been around a big time quarterback talent. What do you think he did for you individually?
He really just helped me gain my confidence back, and he taught me a lot. A year under him, I've learned more than I ever have. So.
And then I remember talking to you when Julius Baynard was picking up his All Flex finalist award for wide receiver, and you were talking about how, as far as you know, UTEP's plans with you is to redshirt your first year. Is that still the case? One, and then two, if it is the case, what kind of test do you think that'll be for you, just in terms of like kind of waiting your turn and continuing to honing in your craft and taking advantage of the opportunity when it does come to you?
Yes, sir. It's still a thing, but I like to look at it as a positive because I can sit back and learn behind the 3-year starter that they have up here, and he's already been teaching me a lot. I'm getting to learn the offense, so I definitely think it'll be a positive thing, and it'll help improve my game.
Yeah, and I think that's why we see so much success from these Westlake guys that are walking on to programs, and just guys from the Austin area, the 512 in general, is we kind of have that like pick yourself up by your bootstraps, like hard hat kind of mentality, because we're not Dallas, we're not Houston. We know we have to put in that extra 1 or 2 reps of work in order to get noticed. Is that how you feel too?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think so. But Austin football is starting to kind of blow up on the map. So I think it's on the rise for Austin.
Hey, Seth, Cameron here. First of all, congratulations on getting out there to El Paso. My question for you here to start off with is, have you had a moment yet on campus? Maybe, I think spring ball is maybe just picking up for you guys, at least workouts. But have you had that first, like, holy crap, I'm not in Bastrop moment. I'm playing D1 football?
I definitely think that moment came when I got that first little gear drop. and I was looking at all the stuff they had just given me, and it was just mind blowing. Like, I'm really playing D1 college football.
The UTEP gear, I think, is very underrated. That orange and blue, and then the little axe. Is it axe? Is it a picket? I don't know what pickaxe.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, that's a sick logo. I see it in the back of cars sometimes. What's it like? Have you gotten to know Coach Daimel yet? And just curious, when you were going through this process of deciding what you wanted to do, the next step, did anyone reach out to you about playing in UTEP in El Paso? Because I'm out there a few times. It's a great area, but the weather is vastly different than what we have here in Austin. Oh, yeah.
Me and Coach Daimel, we have a great relationship. He sits in every quarterback meeting that we've had. And when I was being recruited up here, the person I talked to the most was a quarterback that's been here for about a year. And he really told me how it is up here. So when I got up here, he showed me around. And the weather, it is really different. I threw in some wind today that I've never seen before in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Might be a chance we have two Austin legends at UTEP, Zach, because now we got Seth here. And remember, Jamal Fenner, LBJ head coach now, high school relations director at UT, set the kickoff records at UTEP when he played back in the early 2000s. So Austin and UTEP, man, they got a good relationship going on.
Yeah, 512 to El Paso is definitely a thing. Okay, so Seth, you're 7'1". Are you windmilling? Are you what kind of dunks are you throwing down in the rec center?
Oh, I'm getting up there.
So Mason Cochran, the Round Rock quarterback, is also on the basketball team, but I would say, and tell me if you agree with this, that Seth Mauser is probably one of the best quarterback hoopers that you've never seen hoop from Austin. Is that true?
I definitely think so.
What percentage of 5-on-2 quarterbacks are you dunking on? Over 50%?
What percentage of 5-on-2 quarterbacks am I dunking on? Well, that's a tough one.
All I'm saying is you're yamming on Will Hammond. That's all I know. Okay, so what have you been doing to? You mentioned the freedom and all the free time that comes with college. What have you been doing when you're just kicking in the dorm? Are you on the sticks? Are you getting swamped with homework? What have you been doing to kind of pass the time?
We have some hours we have to do in this study hall, so I'm there. And then when I'm home, I'm really just playing COD, playing Madden, getting something to eat.
All right, I got a Madden question for you because I recently just started jumping back into Madden, and I want to ask you, because you're a quarterback, do you play the game as a quarterback, or do you just run the cheese plays like other people?
I run the cheese plays. I'm not gonna lie.
That's what you got to do to win.
I do what helps me win.
Yeah.
I remember playing when I was in college, playing against a friend who was a quarterback on the team at UIW, and I would pick a defense and then just hot route everyone on defense, and he would get so mad because he would see that it's cover 2 or cover 3, but then I would put someone in man or put someone in like a little shallow zone, and he would get so mad. Does that happen to you?
Really, I like to think of myself as the best Madden player on the UTEP team. So no, it hasn't happened yet, but.
All right, Seth, you're my boy. I'm so excited for you and proud of you and looking forward to see where this opportunity takes you. So again, thank you for calling in. And before we let you go, who you want to shout out to?
Shout out to everybody back home, my mom and my dad, and shout out to all my new teammates up here.
Seth Mauser, the greatest quarterback hooper that you've never seen hoop. Seth Mauser dunking on Will Hammond, coming to a YMCA near you. Thanks again, Seth.
Thanks, Seth.
Great. Thank you.
All right, guys, that'll do it. Eventful Wednesday show for sure. It's been super fun. Recapping the All Flex team, going over basketball scores, getting to talk to Seth Mauser. And this has been really fun to do the last couple of weeks. I know we have a hiatus coming up. Trying to plan out a really good show. I mentioned it to you, Nolan. Trying to plan out a really cool show for next week. Thinking about maybe a podcast down the line, a separate podcast down the line. So exciting times. Exciting times here at the Horn Studios in terms of Flex ATX and high school football coverage. I wanted to thank you, Cameron Parker, for lending us your time. I know you're on ESPN Plus now, so you're super big time kicking it with us. Just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, guys. Appreciate it. And looking forward to this high school basketball weekend, girls and boys. I'll be out at Giddings High School tomorrow, LBJ Austin, taking on Rudder. And then Friday, it'll be Stony Point and Josiah Moseley, who is, hopefully we'll get him on soon. He'll be out there. They're taking on Cibolo Steel. So if you guys are out there, come by, say hello. But looking forward to the rest of the season. We got some Texas baseball games that'll be interfering with the Flex shows. But, you know, we got some stuff in the works. So we'll figure out ways to get content out and gearing up for 7-on-7 schedules are starting to come out. I saw South Lake Carroll release their schedule. So we're getting close to that time of the year, boys. I know it's still February, but I mean, we got our eyes set on summer already.
I think we have the dates for the Austin area 7-on-7.
Let's go.
While Nolan's looking that up, you want to go ahead and give your shout-outs? Cameron Parker, Mr. Play-by-Play.
Got to go
Cameron
with
Parker,
Derek
PXP.
Cohen for spamming the Horn chat box on Twitch. So that's good.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad,
Deco. Shout out
he's
Deco.
listening from some very, exclusive dinner somewhere in downtown on a high-rise, eating caviar.
Or out of the country, maybe.
Yeah, he gone. Oh,
Cameron
okay.
Parker's alone shout-out going to Derek Cohen. Wow, that's big love right there. The dates, Nolan, and then your shout-out.
Summers SQT dates. May 20th, Lake Travis SQT. May 26th, 1 week, 6 days later, Westwood SQT. And then we got June 9th, Westlake SQT at Westlake.
We'll be out there. It'll be interesting
It'll
for
be
sure.
lit.
It'll be fun. Always a highlight of the summer. That's Nolan Hogan. That's Cameron Parker. I'm Zach Lucero. Shout out to Austin Radio Network for the opportunity. Shout out everyone that tuned in. Seth Mauser for calling in. All the guests we have had and will have. Shout out to all my G's. Shout out God. Shout out gang. We'll catch you next week.